Hi, I'm Dr. Catherine Smith of Private Practice Ninja, and today we're going to be talking about data subject access requests and how to deal with them in private practice. Let's imagine a patient pings your secretary an email. It's a SAR, a subject access request. You've got 28 days to deal with it. Would you be prepared? Would you even know what to do? And how much disruption is it going to cause if you can't get that data with a few clicks of a button? We're going to be talking all about that today. You might be thinking, can't I just say no? Well, there are times when you can decline a SAR. Here's an example. Hopefully it doesn't happen to you that often, but let's say you've got a patient who for some reason has taken a bit of a disliking to you. Unlikely, I know, but sometimes patients enjoy a bit of a stir, don't they? Let's say they want to really mess up your life by asking for their data one week, and then next week they ask for that same data. Now, if you know sod all has happened in between those two times, you can just tell them to, no, sorry, can't be doing with that. There are other times when you can decline a SAR. One of those times might be if that person's data contains data about another person that's a bit sensitive. Think sexually transmitted diseases, that kind of thing. You can also decline it if you're worried that the patient is going to cause harm to themselves or others upon receiving their data. And the ICO has this interesting term of vexatious, which means like if their request is going to cause unnecessarily harm, distress, disruption, etc., then you can say no to. There are some legal reasons why you can decline a SAR. That is if a court of law forbids it, if it's known as privilege, which basically means stuff between a lawyer and their client, or if there's a special law about it that says you can't share, such as some fertility and adoption laws. If you're declining a SAR, it goes without saying that you need to document it thoroughly and get back to that patient with your reasoning in 28 days. The GDPR does allow us to negotiate on SARs. Here's a ridiculous example. So let's imagine you're a rheumatologist and you're peri-retirement and you've had a lifelong rheumatological patient, okay? Their notes are vast. They're so big it would make a Munchausen's patients jealous. And they're stored in some giant vaults dotted around the country because they've seen various specialists. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's a lot of data. Some of the data may be dating back to the 60s, the time when we were still telling people to chuff a few fags to keep their weight down. You could negotiate with the patient and say, why don't we give you the last 10 years of electronic data instead? They'll probably be up for that. Also, if it's very difficult for you to gather in that data within 28 days, and there may be some extenuating circumstances, for example, you've got to try and drag it out of some vault that's in Inverness and there's terrible weather and you can't get the helicopter in or some nonsense like that, then you may actually be able to eke out a little bit more time, and most reasonable people will be happy with that. Who else can request a SAR? Well, solicitors can, provided that they've given you written consent from the patient. Now, an example of this might be a personal injury claim. I work in the musculoskeletal world and I probably have about 3 a month. So as long as the documentation's there, you can pretty much treat it like it's come directly from the patient. Who shouldn't be asking for a SAR? Well, insurers basically. That's a little bit naughty if they try and get data from you without the patient's consent. And interestingly, if they try and have a snoop around in some patient records to see what that patient's criminal past has been about, that is actually a criminal offence in its own right. The ICO don't like it. When you're giving data to the patient, you also need to give them some additional data, and that basically says how you deal with their data. What that should look like really is a link to your privacy notice that talks about your legal reason for processing their data, how long you're keeping their data, etc. So if you haven't got a privacy notice, get in touch. We're a bit good at them. Emails and SARs. So it's not just about the written word, it's not just about digital notes, it's also about email because email contains data. Now, if your email is set up in such a way that it's actually difficult for you to extract those patient emails, you're going to find it pretty awkward every time someone slaps you with a SAR. That's why it's really important to have a proper practice management system set up and that integrates with email so that you can extract it easily. HeyDoc has a good system, for example, and if you're using email separate to your practice management system, then use an email provider that makes it super easy, which is why we really love Office 365. What about dead people? Well, the GDPR says, sorry mate, you're dead, you're not covered by the GDPR anymore. In the UK, when you die, your records go off to Primary Care Support England. You can get access to other people's records once they've died under the Access to Health Records Act of 1990. The only data that you allowed, however, is something that directly relates to the thing that you're asking about. So for example, let's say you've got a claim because your person or friend had died and you've got life insurance claim on them. You'll get just the right amount of data that satisfies that claim and no more. Can I charge for a SAR? Usually no. Sorry about that. What form should I give the data to the patient in? Well, the GDPR basically says that if the patient requests the information electronically, you send it back to them electronically. If a patient phones up, I think it's really important that you ask them to put it in an email so it's documented in your systems, and then it gives you then a vehicle for exporting the data back to them. I feel a bit daft mentioning this to you, but for goodness sake, send it via encrypted email. So what steps should you take when a patient hits you with a SAR? Number 1, acknowledge to the patient that you've received it and reply to them that you're going to be getting it back to them within 28 days. Number 2, fire up that useful stuff in your practice management system that allows you to export that data relating to that patient. And don't forget to bring in those emails either from where they're stashed in your practice management patient record or externally using one of the export strategies, say from Office 365. Number 3, once you've gathered in the data, have a quick snoop around in it. Make sure you're not breaking any of those rules that relate to times when you shouldn't be sending patients' data. For example, does it contain any genetic sensitive information, or is there anything legal around it that would prevent you from sending it to them? Number 4, send it to the patient in an encrypted format and make sure that they've replied to you to say that they've received it. If you're struggling to get your systems and processes in order, like Noodle the Ninja Dog here, then get in touch. I'm at css@privatepracticeninja.co.uk.